Preston Thorne, good things occur when you're big, physical, fast, and strong.
Those are some good requirements. If you have those requirements as a football player, you have a legit chance. Now, obviously, you have to be skilled at football because there are a lot of people who are big, fast, and strong who aren't very good at football. But this guy is. Nicky Manwari, listed at the top of a very prestigious list. The Bruce Feldman Combine Draft 25 Freaks list. Number 1. At the top of the list.
We've kind of dominated, I feel like, this kind of list for a while.
You're right. You're right, because the preseason football list, we had number 1 was Nick Harbor. So Gamecocks have been at the top of this list for a good period of time, at least in this past year. And then there's been a couple of others who have been on this list. But what is the Freaks list? As you said, it's talking about guys who obviously meet a certain criteria as far as playing is concerned, but they are able to do things athletically above and beyond what is normal for their position. So Nick, as of now, 6'3", 220. Those are his measurements.
Okay.
That alone puts him in rarefied air, especially for the position that he's going to be hopefully playing at safety in the NFL. But then when you combine that with his ability to run, I'm just running off the thing. Now, looking at the article, he was number 11 in the preseason list. He's jumped all the way to number 1 of draft-eligible guys. Broad jump 11.4, vertical jump 42 inches, and he reps 225 24 times. Okay, so he's, as you said, fast, physical, strong, all of those things which are prerequisites for what looks like, and this is what I said earlier, Nick is going to do wonderful at the Combine, barring any injury. He's going to do wonderful at the Combine, not only in the physical parts. He's going to get into interviews. He's going to do very well in the interviews. His stock is only going to rise after his appearances at these Combine events.
So that's going to, I agree with you, especially when they just see him run, like in person, because I think you would agree, being a football guy, you might have watched film. I don't know if there was a particular player. I think you've always talked about Matt Jones for Arkansas, and you might have watched film. It's like, that guy looks fast. And then you actually get out there and you go to grab him or tackle him, and you're like, oh, no, he's not fast. He's super fast.
He's 2 steps away from me now. I miscalculated there. Yeah, there are definitely guys who – and this is always interesting about football. Some guys are bigger in person. Some guys are not as big in person. It just all depends on the way they're because even when you say 6'3", 6'3" looks different on different people. And so Nick is a guy who, quite honestly, when you see him in person, he's more tall and slender than you would imagine. But then when you see him on the field, and it's like, oh, this guy does play free safety.
Those pads.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I get it. And so, yeah, different guys measure up in different ways.
I like how you word that because that's something that I've always been fascinated with football, especially having the opportunity to go to SEC media days and see guys. Like I always wanted Tua always seemed small and stocky to me. Mm-hmm. And then you get up next to him, and he was taller than I would have expected, but he was built. Like, he was stocky. Right. I was really amazed by that. I remember going to an SEC media days, and Leonard Fournette was there, and I was just amazed. He looked like a brick wall. He absolutely looked like a brick wall. I think it was a couple of years ago. I don't remember what year specifically it was, but Javon Gwynn for South Carolina was at a media days, and I remember thinking, like, you should be fatter. Like, for an offensive lineman, you shouldn't be slim in the manner that you are, and you're exactly right about that. Now, I mentioned this earlier. Does South Carolina have another one already in the pipeline?
Oh, I'm interested. I'm curious to hear what you're saying here.
So there's a freshman that is enrolled. Let me give you the specifics of the height and weight. This is on the new football spring roster. He is a safety. It's almost similar position, probably going to be a similar position to Nicky Manwari. He is listed height-wise at 6'4", weight-wise at 220, and at least in high school has run a 4.5. Now, the high school times, you know how that works.
Might be a high school 4.5, and that's fine.
Kendall Daniels Jr., who comes to South Carolina out of Virginia, is already on campus, went to Norfolk, Virginia High School, went to Maury High School, which I believe is the same high school as Fred J.R. Johnson. But this is a kid that they're already talking about maybe being able to come in. And even Warrior had a very interesting career for South Carolina in that he was kind of known as a freak before being a football player when he arrived. and then had to step in immediately against Georgia State, I believe.
Correct.
In game one, and made a pivotal stop down around the goal line in one of his first 4 or 5 plays.
Early.
Had the great season as a freshman, but sophomore year took a step back, got hurt, and I don't know if he ever recovered or what kind of occurred. And then obviously this year, is it 2 pick sixes he had called back?
Yes.
Am I right on that?
Yes. He obviously the big one against LSU, which I'm sure he thinks about quite often.
We all do.
Yeah, we all think about that quite often. You think about what he did. But, Bill, how could you talk about Nick Emenwari without that beautiful open field tackle against Missouri, against Luther Dixon on 3rd and 13 when he makes the tackle and forces them to punt? How could you – that's all he needs. He just needs to play that play.
I'm not a defensive guy.
He needs to play that play on –
I would be one of those little wide receivers.
It needs to be on loop. It's like, look, just watch this play. You want to draft me? You want to draft a guy that can tackle in open space? Look at this right here. But, no, he had a wonderful, wonderful career, and – he's going to be somebody who, when you turn on the tape, instantly impressive. He's going to have to run a decent time. He will run that time. I would just say look for him to. He's projected at the bottom of the first round right now. I would say look for him to maybe rise.